Today is a worldwide launch of Cuphead, the first and probably last good game that utilizes the Unity engine. While I'm most definitely making a detailed review on the game, I wanted to show off my very first 26 minutes of playing it. While I've seen the trailers here and there for the past 100 years, I never actually got to try it out prior to launch. Why only the first 26 minutes? Because a particular fellow requested as such from various people on an open social media platform. I decided to take that as an invitation for basically anyone to be a spiteful dickhead and show them how video games work. I'm not doing this because I want to shit on someone for doing a bad job, I just want to clearly air what it means to love and appreciate video games as a community. I reject the idea that it fetishizes elitism, and what it really boils down to is three basic things. Firstly, love of video games. Secondly, the drive to get better. And lastly, a basic knowledge of gaming. Anything from history, to design, to genre. Anything that proves that you give a shit. It's not about being the best, it's not about being pro at the game, it's simply about having fun. Okay, so we're pretty much at the beginning of the game. So without further ado, we will start the clock right now. With the tutorial, of course, the ever-famous tutorial.
Yeah, the most polarizing moment in gaming history. This was like the beginning of the World War I of video games.
Okay. Look at this. It's so to the point.
Yeah, actually, it's also pretty non-invasive. Like, it's not like most tutorials where it forces you to stop what you're doing and your only option is to do that one thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh god, it infuriates me.
You don't like tutorial design like that?
I hate tutorials in general.
I like tutorials that do feel more natural. Oh shit, I'm not gonna do it twice.
I think you can just keep bouncing off of them, maybe. Wait, try it again?
Oh wait, hold on. Wait. Oh, that's fucking cool.
Okay, so I guess we'll jump right into it here. We're all aware of what happened.
Oh.
You know, as you mentioned before, Dean Takahashi was trying to play this game and he got stuck on the air dash part of the tutorial for 6 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, and like I said a few seconds ago, it was probably the most polarizing moment in the entirety of video game history. Thing turned into an overnight shitstorm.
That entire ordeal got so many strange comments and statements from people, including gaming journalists. I actually remember seeing people saying that the tutorial wasn't obvious enough, even though it says plain as day what you can do.
It's literally written on the wall. So we had this whole thing happen. We had people mercilessly not attack but like make fun of this guy, and I can't say it was undeserved.
Cool.
But you know, they were pretty brutal about it. And then you have video game journalism outlets like Kotaku and Polygon, and are there any other ones? I don't even know anymore because I don't care about video games.
What does it matter? It was a lot of sites.
Yeah, a lot of sites and a lot of professionals specifically, which is the remarkable part, talking about attacking their community again and saying that, the community fetishizes elitism and basically upset fans are in the wrong rather than Dean Takahashi. So after all this, how many days later? 3 days later or so?
Mm-hmm. A few days after the original video, you mean?
Yeah. After it blows up, he ends up issuing an apology. And, it's like, it's interesting because he's owning the fact that he sucked at this. But my question is, what's your problem with the apology?
My problem with the apology is that I feel like a good portion of it shouldn't exist in the first place. I don't think you should be apologizing for being bad at something, because why do you have to apologize? Everybody understands that there are people who just aren't very good at video games. Just like there are people who are not good at certain sports, not good at doing anything, really. No matter what it is, there are some people that are just not that skilled at it. Doesn't matter what it is. Why would he need to apologize about that just because it's video games? Unless he thinks the community sees it as such.
So you're saying that he's apologizing because of a perceived notion that he has to be...
He's probably apologizing for that because he thinks he's pressured into it.
Okay, like you're saying that he wouldn't have apologized had nobody said anything.
Of course not.
And
Absolutely not.
I think not either. I mean, like, I don't think there was a reason to apologize to begin with. Sure, he was bad at a game, but it's like he's also one individual being the voice of a community, he doesn't need to be like, he doesn't need to respond to every one of their like critiques of him either. I don't think he should spend his time doing that.
Absolutely not.
It's just weird because I've for people that like, you know, so mercilessly strike back or clap back at their own audience, it just seems really weird for somebody to try and own up to it like this. Like it seemed very genuine at first. Like he did, I read the, you know, the first half of his apology, and it just seems like, hey, I'm not the best at games. I do love games, but you know, I'm really not good, and this was pretty shameful as I realize now. But it seems like he's apologizing for a non-issue. So if it's a non-issue and what, you know, he apologized was what he did was a non-apology, what's the fuss?
I think that let me think back at this, because I'm also kind of playing this as well. I find it weird that he sounds like he's just apologizing because he's bad at the video game, not because he's bad at a video game in the kind of position that he's in. That's everybody's problem with it. They feel that he is not qualified.
That he should be better at video games to talk about video games.
And not just be really good at games on your first try or anything like that, just understand extremely basic mechanics. Just like the art style of this game, it's designed to be very simple and to the point. And the fact that you weren't able to comprehend with that, there's no mystery why people are questioning your position. Talking about Dean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like his authority was, you know, tarnished after this. Like he had no credibility, and it's just you know, it's really funny that this happened when.
Oh fuck! I said press Y. Whoops.
It's really funny that it happened when it did happen, because this is amidst, you know, a summer of game journalists getting mercilessly shat upon for saying things like X is the Dark Souls of Y.
I mean, look at this. Isn't this kind of creepy?
Oh yeah, this is definitely Dark Souls. That's Akira Toriyama's.
Oh shit! I thought.
Oh yeah, you see, you died just like Dark Souls.
Oh god, you're right.
Shit, they're right. But you know, it's
smashing like, even in grave. I'm sorry.
Those puns. So it's funny because, you know, this comes at literally a time where people like I can't even say the hardcore audience, but the general audience is starting to realize that, oh, the people that we trust to review video games and give us our opinions on video games might not know what the heck they're talking about. But then it raises a better question.
Oh god. Okay.
That was close. It raises a better question.
I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Which is, what's a better way? Because, I mean, they're making comparisons because they want to explain...
I knew it.
Oh, that's cool.
Sorry, go ahead.
They're making comparisons because they're trying to just give their audience a feel for it. It's like, oh, Cuphead is popular and it's hard. You know what else is hard and popular? Dark Souls.
I have no problem when people make comparisons to games that actually do feel that they possibly derive or are inspired from it, such as Neo.
Yeah, like Neo Dark Souls, that's a fair comparison.
Yeah, it is a fair comparison. And it means that it's just like this. It means that if you enjoy that, you'll enjoy this. That's what I don't like about a lot of comparisons like that, because people took into account of comparing games back then. If you like this kind of game, then you might like this kind of game. It wasn't, this is just like this. That's what I don't like about these comparisons.
Well, so, like, the question is, what would be an apt comparison to make? What could they compare Cuphead to that would have made sense?
The games that it very clearly is inspired from, but the problem... I've thought about this for a long time, especially when it came to other appalling articles comparing the likes of Breath of the Wild with Skyrim and Mario to Dishonored of all things. Is like they just care about pinning it on something that's popular in the Western community, I guess. And games like Contra and Metal Slug just aren't that anymore. Even though they still get ports here and there, apparently it's not substantial enough to keep its legacy strong, as far as these journalists go.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're definitely correct there. It's just I feel that they don't have much of a way to make a comparison meaningful. It's like, okay, Cuphead feels just like Contra, but there's a very small group of people that are going to see that and take solace in it. It's like, look at us. We're in our mid-20s. The people that play Contra are, you know, for the most part, as old as us, if not older. Getting them excited isn't the...
I guess that's true.
It's not the target anymore. But the question is, how can they make this comparison? Because, like, I don't think we've had anything like Cuphead in a very long time. And I think, the younger audience, like the 19-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, the 17-year-olds, like kids basically.
That looked like a spread shot, so I bought it.
Nice.
It's just...
I mean, oh, is that the golf shot? Lobber, yeah, that's tennis.
I was gonna say. Smoke bomb.
So I think they they don't have that comparison to make. Like, sure, you can play Contra. Sure, a lot of people may know what Contra is, but for that to be meaningful, it has to be directed at somebody who's played Contra, and those people aren't the majority anymore. And I don't think there's anything that they can compare it to now that's good in recent history. Like, what are they going to say? Oh, it feels like Mighty Number 9?
It feels like a good game. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I think that's as simple as it can get. I think trying to draw comparisons is just difficult when you don't have anything relevant to draw from it.
It's very strange to me because it feels to me that these people don't think they're going to care about what they say unless I don't have anything, but unless they try to make them relate to a game that they've already played. So they think there's some sort of this endless cycle when it comes to these games. Like, you understand, there are certain games that they didn't do well because they were compared to other games. They did well because they were good games and well marketed.
Yeah.
There were days where you couldn't compare games to it. So how did they do well?
Yeah.
Standing out.
Well, it's funny that you're saying this because we have there's a giant credibility gap between video games and nice. There's a giant credibility gap between game journalists and their audience. There's a lot of antagonism, which I don't really understand. Like, I'm not a sports guy, but I don't even think that, like, sports fans hate on their, on their commentators that they look up to. And I don't think their commentators hate back on their fans in the same way.
I don't. Oh, shit. I don't think so at all.
I wouldn't know, but what I'm getting at is that there's a disconnect between the community and the quote unquote authority in that community, or the authority that's supposed to represent that community.
There are sports commentators that are very highly looked up upon, who do like commentaries or after game
analyses
and all that. But I can't imagine there are a lot that are like despised throughout the community or whatnot, and that's a huge difference between that and gaming community, because it doesn't have to do with the fans or anything. It's just that it's just a different take on things.
Yeah. Well,
in other words, I feel like they don't try to shove politics into everything, like a lot of game journalists have for the past few years.
It's been getting really politicized recently. It's hard to, because everything has become...
I'm sorry, sports?
Yeah, everything has become political. Like, we have the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, which I do not want to get into because it's not an argument for here.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking more about them just trying to attack fans and whatnot with that. I don't think they've ever done that with any fans of any team.
I can't. I'm not sure I've seen that in the sports industry either.
Some parts of it have become political, but
there's been no animosity towards fans.
Yes, there's no animosity towards fans, and they don't try to support some sort of agenda through their reports and through their analyses.
Yeah, they're not trying to influence a greater opinion. They're just there to talk about sports.
They don't look at a Patriots victory and say, "This is why Donald Trump won." Is what I'm saying.
Which Dean Takahashi did say, unfortunately. But I
remember thinking like, oh, what if he mentions Donald Trump in this article? And he fucking did.
He did.
That
it was
blew my mind. I'm like, I'm a clairvoyant.
Well, it was pretty bad. I mean, like, you can definitely see the Gamergate subreddit, for example, becoming co-opted by the alt-right and a bunch of people. Like, it's become so far removed from talking about video games now. And I go look at it and I'm like, I used to be into this 3 years ago, but now they're talking about stuff that is so far beyond the scope of video games. Like, I don't want to read about... when I go there, I want to read about corruption in the video game industry. I don't want to read about, the next Antifa nightmare. I go to separate places for that.
I feel like it's a little unfair to I'm not that I'm saying you're doing this to say that this is what this Gamergate community has become. Granted, I don't really follow Gamergate anymore. I have it for a couple of years now, but it's the idea of the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. that doesn't represent the entire community, and I don't think
No,
it's
no,
ever
it
fair to
definitely
do that,
doesn't. But
to
it
do that with
represents the vocal part of the community, and that's why
it's the
it's
loudest.
Yeah, and I think that's what places like Kotaku and Polygon are rebelling against. There's a place that they know. Wow, there's a place that they know the anger is coming from, and I think what they're trying to do is really address them without saying it, because they don't want to start any more of a war than has already started.
Right.
But it's what we've seen as a result of this is a movement towards a movement away from mainstream video game journalism, instead a lot more appreciation of YouTube personalities for opinions on video games. People like Maximilian and JonTron, Dunkey, what's that guy, ProJared?
JonTron stopped doing that a long time ago, to be fair.
Okay, granted, but I mean, like,
I get what you're. I know.
But JonTron is more of an authority than Kotaku is to most people at this point.
ProJared, ugh, God, leave the room.
I don't know. I was just coming up with examples. I don't care for reviews either way.
Sorry, ProJared, if you're watching this.
But yeah, so it's like the question is, what can the video game journalism industry do to reconcile? How do they gain their credibility back? How does their audience start liking them again?
It all started. I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of this game journalism antagonism came from when people started realizing how often they get paid for their reviews. And I think one of the most gaping examples was when I remember this is when I first started hearing about it. I think I was like 17. When did ODST come out?
Halo, I was probably like 15, so yeah, 17.
I remember everybody going crazy about that because the fact that they gave it a 10 out of 10 and the review sounded so robotic that everyone's like, what the hell is going on here? Because everybody said that was just like a subpar expansion. It's getting a 10 out of 10 on Game Informer. I remember because Game Informer was a very respected source. Outlet. And I think that's where a lot of it started. Granted, getting paid for reviews has been a thing since the Sega Genesis.
Getting paid for reviews has been a thing since money and reviews have existed simultaneously.
I mean, regarding video games.
Yeah.
Before that, it was honestly just like the Wild West of journalism.
Yeah.
But yes.
So the question is, what can they do to reconcile? How do they move back to regain the good graces of their former fans and their audience?
Well, I'll answer that question with another question. How does a person do that? How does a person who fucked up so much for so many years start to redeem himself?
No, it's definitely a good point. I mean,
own up to your mistakes. Own up to what you were doing, what you're doing that was so disingenuous. That's all, really.
But then they have to move on from it. So, like, what's the move that they could make where they can actually improve as a source of information?
Stop pushing agendas. That's definitely one place to start. I mean, I don't know I don't have the keys to all these questions, but that's definitely a good place to start.
Just get back to talking about video games.
Get back to talking about video games in an unbiased standpoint. There's nothing that disgusted me more than I think it was Polygon giving Bayonetta 2 really low reviews just because they didn't like the character's design, thinking it was too over-sexualized. It's like, whatever you think of that, it doesn't really matter. The game itself is designed incredibly, and everybody agreed to that. And Nintendo is paying you and giving you copies of the game so you can possibly help them garner sales. And all you're doing is unfairly judging it just because of the character's design and such.
Mm-hmm.
I can't learn to appreciate something like that. I don't expect anybody I follow on YouTube to ever act like that.
Yeah, I'd hope not. I mean, I'm sure they'd become the ridicule of the community if
they ever did anything like that.
Yeah, if that became a thing. So
they have their own slew of problems.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh, you got him?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of problems there, but it's beyond the scope of this conversation. I don't even think it really matters.
We're going a little crazy, especially me.
So it's like back to taking accountability for it and trying to be genuine, trying to just show that when you review games, it just comes from a love of games, and that's where your concerns lie. Dean even mentions that he loves games. He's had a long career saying, he's been playing since Pong. He's written 14,000 articles. He wants to play games as much as he can, but, he has a long day. He can't do it. So why do you think people are upset? Why are you upset about his whole stance on this? Because he just seems like a less skilled version of you or me or anybody else for the most part.
I'm personally find it very questionable about how he played the game. Not because he did poorly. People do poorly playing games like this. I've seen that plenty of times. It's just the fact that he, like he said, like words are out of his mouth. He's been part of this industry for so many years. He's been writing and reviewing games for literally decades. And you still don't understand how the most basic mechanics work. Now, that's why, in a way, I find it unbelievable that he's bad at the game. It's not just that he's bad, it's that I feel like he's not supposed to be. He's been around games for so many years, like he said, since Pong. So, what is it about this game that you just don't seem to even want to comprehend with how it works? And that's what I think is the problem. It really seemed like he didn't give a shit. Despite that he is supposed to be a journalist who's supposed to give his hands-on previews on it, he doesn't give a shit about learning the game. Like, were the devs near him, I would have, even if one of them, it's like, I would step in like, dude, do you need help? Are you okay? And he's been asked on Twitter, like, were you distracted by something? Or
were you
like,
high? Yeah, can you imagine him answering that?
I remember him specifically responding to that.
Use your special. I want to see this.
What? Which one?
B.
Big ol' missile.
Okay, that's pretty...
Oh.
Do you detonate it, or...?
No, it just kind of did that.
Alright, go! Leave! You're not doing anything.
That's fun. My issue is that it seemed like he didn't really care. And that's... so is that where you're trying to show your love of video games by showing you don't even care about learning tutorials? He said in that response, the tutorial didn't specify that I had to use the air dash to get above that high pillar. And I said, not only does that sound like the dumbest thing I've ever heard, I don't think that's true. I think for that moment that he felt was okay to antagonize the game and its design, he came up with something to make it seem more like it's not his...
Like he was justified.
It's not his fault, and he was justified, exactly. That's my main problem with it. I've seen plenty of people be bad at video games, all right? I've seen my dad try to play games. I know what that's like, and I don't think that's exactly it for him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, there is something to be said, because it doesn't seem like he's totally disingenuous throughout the entire ordeal. I mean, even in his quote-unquote, literally quoting him, non-apology letter, he does say that, it would have been a bigger disservice to his fans if he cut the footage. He said he wanted to show the most honest, vulnerable, playthrough of the game. And... can you really fault him for that? He's still maintaining journalistic integrity there by not, even pretending that he was good at the game. Granted, that was painful to watch and it seemed like a total waste of time. But...
Oh, shit.
Go get her. Yeah. Oh. But can you really fault him for, being upfront about it?
In regards of that one single example, no. In regards of how he should be at regarding his entire career, yes. That's why it's opening up disingenuous. It's opening questions of how genuine he is about the rest of his career. That's what I'm asking, and that's what I hope other people are asking too. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Well, explain a little bit more there.
It's like I said before. He should be better at the most basic possibly basic mechanics I've ever seen in a video game before.
No. I completely understand that, but it's like at the very least, he was nice.
Oh wow.
At the very least, he was honest about, being bad at the game. I think that's, I think that at least, we can give him some points back there because, yeah, sure, he's a public figure. He has to go be vulnerable in front of, an audience of potentially hundreds of thousands of, possibly even millions of people, depending on your scope. I mean, I really want to know how many people actually reacted to this.
A good amount.
Yeah. And it's difficult. I don't fault him there. You feel the pressure, that's totally fine. I just think that as somebody who's reviewing a game or trying to give first impressions, he should be, a bit more prepared.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this, it was a terrible preview.
Yeah,
That's what it was. It was like a hands-on. It was supposed to be like a hands-on preview, and he decides to make a joke out of it.
well, you know what's really funny is a friend of mine actually. I was talking to him about this game, and he was like, "Yeah, I heard the completely misinformed. Like he missed most of the debacle, but he's like, I heard that the tutorial was so hard they had to dumb it down, and it's like, no, I don't think they altered the tutorial at all. As we just saw, it looks.
And they absolutely didn't. We just saw it. Looks exactly.
It's the exact same thing.
Oh no, I don't think I get that.
No, try, go far. Yeah. It's just I feel like there's definitely I think it's worth being angry about the potential for misinformation here. It's like, could this have resulted in lost sales? Could this have resulted in a worse worse review for the game?
That's what I'm saying, and I think he's also chalking up the game being too hard. When he just doesn't understand it, and is that really that genuine? Why don't you just admit you don't understand the game? That's another reason I have a problem with this entire thing.
But I mean, there's also another question that could be asked here, which, we're running out of time, but I do want to get to really quickly. The whole review and like the whole mantra of video games that sells now is, it's hard as Dark Souls. It's hard, it's hard, it's hard. So it's like, I guess he did very well prove that the game was hard. So hard, in fact, that he couldn't get past it.
And what am I doing?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I definitely feel like, he didn't give it the old quote-unquote college try.
Yeah, and I don't want to seem disingenuous either. I'm a Contra veteran, and I think any other Contra veteran can pick up this game extremely quickly.
So
that's why I'm not doing great, but I'm like getting through.
Doing it.
I'm getting through.
All right, we've got 30 seconds left, so I just want you to give your final thoughts on the matter and go.
I don't trust the entire situation. Again, I feel like he is never going to own up to this, but that really? But that he just didn't care. That's my biggest regret. It has nothing to do with how genuine you are about the run, this and that. It's nothing about what you think the video represents or how you think people should have taken it. It really just seems to me that you don't care, despite your position in game journalism. In game journalism.
So you're saying it's just an issue of compassion? You think that...
Yeah, it is. So, and I feel like he's lying about it.
So let's correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this whole thing can be boiled up into the people that are reviewing games these days are doing it because it's a job and no longer because they love it.
I think that's what happened to him.
And I think that's where we should stop it. I think this is the conversation point. Are the people... It's the bigger question. Are the people that we trust to review games no longer into it?
It's a very good question. And... there's no way we can even we can't just replace all of them, obviously. So I don't know how to really approach that problem. Okay, and there you have it. My first 26 minutes. Wow, look how far I got. And I was kind of distracted. It was my first time even seeing a lot of this. My hands hurt from being my wrists were hyperextended, so that wasn't any fun. But either way, I guess it wasn't that surprising. The game's design is very straightforward, and the tutorial was clear and to the point, both textually and visually. It has no real hidden tricks or deep mechanics. As long as you have a basic sense of spatial awareness that you would have gotten from playing any platformer, there isn't anything mind-blowing or hard to understand. Okay, I think everyone who's still watching this knows what I'm getting at. There's a few reasons why I'm doing the video. Some people, as of recent, including Dean, seem to think the majority of the gaming community is obsessed with elitism and highly skilled playing, and that, in reality, we would all be just as bumbling and brainless playing this game for the first time like he was. I wanted to show this is far from the truth. It really doesn't take much to understand the game's mechanics and pick it up quickly. A good lot of us were children playing games pretty much like this and understood design very similar to Cuphead. That includes Dean. Not a child, but he was pretty young back when run and gun games were still a real genre. I also wanted to address a disconnect between the issue with the entire Dean get good ordeal and what defenders are spewing constantly. I'm obviously not that highly skilled in games, as you just saw, but I have an essence and familiarity with how they function and play. Using the previous knowledge of all kinds of games I've played in the past, including those of the run and gun genre, I was able to understand this new adventure fairly quickly. Now, if someone who doesn't really play video games, not involved in the industry at all, or somehow never touched a controller in their life struggled in something like the tutorial and the basic mechanics of the game, I understand. I mean, most of us have seen our parents try to play games, and I'm willing to bet the majority failed miserably. The thing is, Dean is not some random person who never touched a video game in his life. He's been writing about video games for many years. In order to write as much as he has, he's had to have played plenty throughout his career, right? It's baffling to see him struggle so much in something like this. There's no such thing as professional standards in being a fan of the franchise, but there is such a thing as minimum job requirements. So before any more defenders out there try to spew crap like the tutorial isn't clear enough, or you just expect him to be extremely good at a new game for the first time, we only expect journalists to be competent at simple mechanics and design. We expect them to solve obstacles that are laid out clear as day. We expect them to understand games. We obviously don't expect every single game journalist to be Sonic Fox or your average Korean StarCraft player, and the absolute notion of that is just ridiculous. Nobody on his feed is saying anything remotely close to that. Just about all the criticism comes from the fact that he doesn't know how this goddamn part of the tutorial works. If I'm supposed to have 3 years of experience just to work an unpaid internship at some company, then it's not unreasonable of me to expect a journalist who's been doing this as long as Dean has to at least get past this part of the tutorial in less than a century. If you feel you're lacking the basic qualifications to play this game and present it as a hands-on preview, then don't. You were given a rare opportunity to play a game people were pining over for 3 years, and not only did you squander it, but you turned it into some sort of self-serving chance of defending your ego and claiming the elitism is the problem, rather than your own ability to perform. This is an honor that should have been passed to someone else that could have given a more accurate description of what the game was like. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me in my upcoming review of Cuphead. It'll be the start of my Legacy review series. I am an extremely avid fan of the Contra series as it had a strong impact on the gaming aspect of my life and what I enjoy from this form of entertainment. But if you don't know that already, check out my retrospect on the series. While that franchise will probably continue to remain dead, I think it's worth reviewing the games that were clearly affected by the legacy it provided. Thanks for bearing through these 26 minutes with me, and I hope I provided something new to the conversation. Now please, go have fun with Cuphead.
There you go.
Buy the game. Buy the mugs. Buy the figures.
Okay,
buy the
save
vinyl.
It. Stop, save it right now.
Buy the vinyl. Enjoy it. Please.